Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I've Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And welcome back to the return of our Last of Us special. This is a thing we do where we react to the Last of Us TV show, currently in season 2. And it's 2 years later, here we are again. Not a sponsor, but they should really get on it. This is ridiculous.
You know they have their own podcast, right?
I know they have their own podcast, but this is still good. We've been here.
We're doing it too, I'm just saying, but...
Also, so these are coming out on Saturdays, about a week after the original episode that we're talking about airs. There will be spoilers, but only for that episode and the previous season and also the video game, but not plot-specific spoilers from the video game. We're trying to protect a lot of people from being spoiled.
Yes.
Which, just a quick warning from me, if you don't want to be spoiled, do not go... Well, actually, I don't even care if you want to be spoiled. Don't go anywhere near the Last of Us 2 Reddit. It's a very toxic place.
Oh, really?
Just
from the old stuff? Or this too? Okay.
Well,
because we talked about the old stuff before. Not the old stuff, being game stuff.
And we will talk about that. We will talk about that as we get to where that is really relevant. But I just know I have a friend who'd never played the game, and he would, after the episode had aired, he'd go on Reddit, and I was like, do not do that for the second season. Just don't do it. You're gonna be disappointed. It's not good. Oh yeah. But we've been talking about it. I've been so excited. Samantha and I are getting to hang out while we're doing it and having food and drinks, and it's so fun. So thank you, as always, Samantha, for letting me do that and letting me geek out about all of this.
Next time I'm going to keep account of how many times you say, oh no. Because I'm pretty sure we hit at least like double digits on this first round. Yeah. Because there's a lot of moving pieces in this. If you don't know, this is based on the 2020 game, The Last of Us Part 2. This is half of a season, is what I'll say, and it actually might be 1/3 of a season of that game. The game is much longer. It's double the length of the first game. It is much more complicated. They've already been greenlit for season 3. I think they're going to do a season 4, personally. It's going to be much shorter, but I think they're going to do a season 4. But just to say, it is much longer, and it's kind of a half season. Also, I was doing my rewatches to prepare for this, and I accidentally watched one of the ones that feature ASL, which we so you did watch that version? Okay.
Yes. And it was, I unfortunately don't understand ASL, but it looked really cool. So listeners, if anyone was like, oh, this was a good or bad, let us know. But that was neat. All right. So the way these usually work is Samantha gives a recap of the episode, and then I just talk about all of these things that I have to talk about. But since that we are talking about the first episode of the season, I was going to give a really brief recap of last season, wherein we meet Joel and his daughter Sarah. There is a fungus outbreak of cordyceps that turns people into infected. It spreads really quickly. The army steps in, there's bombings, and Sarah is killed. And Joel becomes very angry and shut off. We jump ahead several years, and he's a smuggler. And he's tasked with smuggling this young girl, Ellie, who it turns out she is immune to the infection. And they travel across the United States to find the Fireflies, who are working on a cure. And she is the key to that cure because she's immune. They lose a lot of people along the way. And eventually, Joel warms up to Ellie and sees her as a daughter-like
figure in his life. But then it turns out, in order to make a vaccine, the Fireflies are going to have to, Ellie will die in the surgery. And so Joel kills a lot of people, murders a lot of people, and takes Ellie, who is sedated and unconscious. And when she wakes up, tells her, there is no cure. They've been trying. There's a bunch of other immune people. Can't do it. We're going to go back to Jackson, Wyoming, which is where his brother lives. And his brother used to be a Firefly. And she asked him, like, I need you to swear to me. Is this true? Is everything you said about the Fireflies true? And he said, I swear. And that's where it ended. And that's right where it picks back up.
Yes. As an FYI, again, the show's different from the games, a little bit of variations, and we love that. Anney cries a lot and screams a lot. I do not. And therefore, because I have not played the game as much as Anney, I give the recaps so I can stick with the show and hopefully not do spoilers. Anney would be good about this, but we don't know. She gets too excited about future thoughts. Yes? So we are back with season 1, and we start with an opening scene of gravesite. And a group of people sitting there at this gravesite. And we discover and meet Abby and her crew. Abby is a very important character. She's very upset. She is very mad. She wants revenge. She wants them to help her with her revenge, her being her crew, they're Fireflies. And they all say, yes, we will. But we have to find another crew of Fireflies or something or anyone. Mention of Isaac at this point. Okay, we gotta go. And then after that, yes, they were bound together to make sure that they find Joel or Joe, they don't know, with a girl that may or may not be immune. That's a rumor, they say. And they agree that, yes, first they're going to go do this thing, and then they're going to go find Joel or Joe. And of course, in that moment, she says, slowly. And they're like, what? She's like, he has to die slowly. So, anger, pulsating anger. We are introduced to Abby. Move along. We come back to 5 years later. We are now in Jacksonville, and we see people trying to work on things, on pipes, because, things are happening. They need to fix things. New people are trying to come in. A lot of conversation. And we find out, yes, they are taking a lot of refugees, but they don't have a lot of space. We have the pragmatist Joel being like, you need to stop letting everybody come in. We can't provide for everyone. He's also working with a transmitter at the same time that he's supposed to be the foreman. Then we are soon introduced to a new kiddo, Dina. Dina walks in, and obviously they have good rapport. And Dina asks, what did you do? Why is Ellie so mad, essentially, and what did you do? And they kind of have a small conversation about, like, she's a teenager or whatever, whatnot. And then here he kind of lets it slip that he's working on his life with a therapist. Yeah. Hello, hey, therapist. We move on, and we see Ellie. Oh, she has grown up. She is now 19, and she is sparring with a very big boy. At this point, we also meet Jesse, very excited, played by young Mazzino, if you don't know. He's a cool actor coming in as well. And we have this exchange. Obviously, there's some hostility still because Ellie does not like being checked by Joel, being protected by Joel. Things are being said. All those things. We move on to finding Joel having a conversation with Maria, who is again talking about the issue about too many people coming in, trying to work on everything. She needs him to get things done faster, all of these things. So the back and forth, and then reminding him he was a refugee one time. ... We also then get to meet his nephew, who comes in all excited, talking about shooting zombies. Wonderful. But we also figured out that Ellie and Tommy have been hanging, and he's been helping her to learn to shoot, and they've been sniping some zombies out there. A little bit of conversation. Again, we find out that Joel is overstepping, trying to protect her, telling him to keep her at gate duty, but she's not having that. She wants to go on patrol. And so, of course, after being very obnoxious and spoiled and stubborn, she's screaming, I'm immune, trying to get her way. And she does. She gets to go patrol. Moving on. We see Joel going into a therapy session, and we meet a new character, Gail. She is the town therapist. And he brings in bad weed as payment. And she's like, my husband was better at this. He grew it. He knew how to cultivate it. He was good at it. Whatever went on. So we know that she was married to a man named Gene, who is significant to the game, but we don't know much about him. And now we're going to ... In this therapy section, we find out that he is trying to fix his problems with Ellie, but he's not being honest about what's going down. And Gail, being a good therapist, she's like, yeah, you're bullshit me. And she reveals that Joel had killed her husband. He shot and killed him. And we don't exactly know why. There's a lot of assumptions that are happening. And she says, I do resent you. I do hate you, but I'm working on that. And I know you had to do what you had to do, but I have to be honest. Mm-hmm. All the while, we find out she's pretty drunk. Who isn't at this point? And so a lot of truth comes out. She's like, now your turn. Tell your truth. And he never says anything except for, I saved her. So that's what we know. Moving on, we have Ellie and Dina having these flirty chats, teasing each other about their exes, essentially. So Dina used to date Jesse. Ellie used to date Kat. They're going on patrol. Kat is the leader at this point. And of course, Ellie and Dina are a little rebellious and have to do their own thing, go on their own thing to find the zombies or the clickers and all the infected. And then they get into trouble after having an exciting scene of watching Ellie hack away at a clicker. At another point, she falls through the floor, ends up in the other room. It wasn't the basement. It looked like a store, like the downstairs part of a store. And we find these new types of zombies are silent and very smart. I think one of us said it was a cat. It wasn't on the show, but one of us we're like, is that a cat? What's happening? That's it. But they were smart, and Ellie got bit again, but that's okay because Ellie ended up shooting it and now has to hide this new scar because no one knows she is immune / infected / all the things. So all that happens, and they get back. Of course, they have to they're sitting in front of a council. So it was an interesting scene and talking about this new discovery of this new type of infected. Moving on, all this time, we're talking about a dance that's happening. There's something happening, coming together, having a good old time and celebrating. Everybody's telling her to come. But we also see her in her garage. She now lives in the garage behind Joel's house because she doesn't want to live with Joel. Interaction between them, not so great. The writing that she has in her journal includes, don't this up. I'm assuming about Dina because Dina makes a really bad pun.
Yeah.
Barbecue. And she writes that down. We have that memory in the notebook and all the good stuff. So obviously they're made for each other here.
Yes.
We go on to the dance scene, and in this dance scene, we see Ellie and Jesse just chill in the back watching people. And at this point, Dina pulls her to the dance floor, tells her to come dance with her. They have this intimate moment about how everybody's looking at them and then they're being jealous of Ellie. And then Dina, who's kind of drunk, ends up kissing, and they end up making out in the middle of the floor. Then enters Seth, the bigot, who comes in, says some inappropriate things, and then gets tackled by Joel, which Ellie does not appreciate. Puts a downer on the whole event. And that's kind of how it goes into that. And then we look away. We see some people coming through, and it's Abby and crew. End scene.
Yes. They are approaching. We also see that there's fungus.
Yes.
In the pipes.
There's implication that the fungus has made it into this protected village.
Yes, because the sparkler, somebody drops a sparkler in front of the broken pipe, and they're like, ooh.
I do need to read this. So I was kind of doing a little bit of read through about like recaps and such. And then, it talks about who Gail is. And this comment says from entertainmentew.com, I enjoyed season 1 and was looking forward to season 2. So far, I am disappointed. I can see why they jumped ahead 5 years, but Ellie and Joel are at odds. And so far, it's not explained. Joel's therapist said it's normal for this to happen due to Ellie being 19 and trying to discover her, which seems she's getting a bit of a late start. I do hope episode 2 has Joel and Ellie ironing out their problems. I know Ellie doesn't believe him when he took her away from the hospital, but he did save her life, and she is old enough to appreciate that. I have my fingers crossed that it gets better. I really like the actor and actress playing Joel and Ellie. The most innocent of comments.
Oh,
I
no.
needed that to be read.
I did tell Samantha I was getting a little bit more of that schadenfreude when I was reading. I was like, oh, you don't know what's coming, my friends.
I just really love that they're already annoyed. Like, why are they not talking to each other? This seems silly. This seems silly.
To be honest, the first time you play the game, it's very jarring. You're like, what?
Yeah.
What has happened here? Right. And it's purposeful. It's supposed to make you feel, what have I missed over these 5 years? And we are going to talk about that in the context of this episode. Because again, we are going to do our damnedest to avoid spoilers. But that was an excellent recap, Samantha. Thank you. Okay. So a couple of things I want to talk about in this. Since we're in the first episode, I've hinted at this before, but the way this is going to play out in the show versus how it plays out in the game is just going to be very different. And it's already proven that. So for instance, the beautiful scene between Dina and Ellie at the dance is one of the very last scenes of the game. Because the game is told through a series of flashbacks that happen that are hinted at. So the first main playthrough you start is the day after the party and everybody's talking about it. Everybody's like, Ellie, what happened? We heard you got in a fight with Joel. And so as the player, you're trying to figure it out. But they went ahead and put that early. And by the way, people are freaking out because they left out one of the most key parts of that, but I think it's going to come later. I don't think they would just cut that out. But anyway, but also there's a lot of shifts of POV. So another thing is the introduction to Abby happens early in the game, but you don't know what she's about as early. You kind of are like, who is this? You have your suspicions. But that's a very early reveal of who she is and what she's about. And that is a big theme in the game is perspectives. And one thing that stuck out to me when I was rewatching it is Joel, how he reframes a lot of things when people say things to her. So like with the therapist is like, say the thing out loud, say it. And he's like, I saved her. But then he also said he has this line where Dina asks him, why is she angry at you? Why is Ellie angry at you? But he rephrases that, what's wrong with her? So he's constantly restructuring this. And then I did like this line. It's very funny, but he says, because I'm a good guy, which I am, to the therapist.
She's like, you shot my husband.
Yeah, she gives him the most
But yes, Catherine O'Hara, such a great casting. Good job.
Yes. And I was reading an interview with her today about it because she doesn't normally do such emotional roles. Not that she doesn't have the capacity to, but she said, that takes a lot out of me, but she was convinced to do this one. But she was very, very, very good as Gail, the therapist. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of her. Also, just want to shout out, the set design is really amazing. If you want to look up side by sides, it's pretty stunning how accurate it is. And also just some of the things like the game mechanics. So the whole scene where Ellie's learning how to use the scope for the sniper rifle is in the game, and it's even got some of the same dialogue. Ellie's knife, that is how she kills clickers, by the way, and she's the only character that can do that, which is really cool. Using the bottle to distract the clickers. Kind of the weapons update table is a big feature of the game. Okay, but yes, this episode is called Future Days. And that is a reference to a song that may or may not be relevant in the show. I think it will be, but it's a continuity error because technically it didn't exist at the time. But it was a huge thing in the game. It was like the song that plays through the game. It is a song by Pearl Jam. And Pearl Jam loves it. They've given their full, you can use it. It's like the perfect song for this. But that's where the title comes from. And if you look in the background of Ellie's room, you can see a Pearl Jam poster. Also, If you notice, Ellie has a tattoo now. She has a tattoo that covers what is a chemical burn she put over the bite on her arm to hide it. By the way, Kat, her ex, didn't design, but put that tattoo on.
Interesting.
Yes. Kat is only mentioned in the game, so I was very surprised when Kat showed up. Pleasantly, I was like, oh, Kat. And there's also the symbolism of the moth. The moth is pretty relevant throughout the series in terms of, the Fireflies theme is look for the light. And the moth does that, but the moth can never find the light. And it's like just always constantly looking for it and never can find it. And once we get further in, I'm sure we'll talk about, there are some other theories about why the moth is so important to this, but the moth is part of her tattoo, and it's also on the guitar.
And also, Gail already says the moth is about death.
Yes.
That.
Man, Gail does not care.
She's drunk. She's okay. She's fine. She's either drunk or high. Let her be.
I read an article today that was like, let her have her vices.
Let her everything is worse. Let her be.
It's her birthday.
It's her birthday. She's doing someone else's therapy. The man who killed her husband. In her mind.
It is very funny how, but this actually is a good segue to the next thing I want to talk about. How Joel is just sort of complaining about Ellie not wanting to talk to him, which is a legitimate complaint, but she's just listening to him like,
She also makes that face when he punches Seth, and she's like, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
and she's in the background like sipping her drink. Oh my gosh. But this was an interesting, so we have this 5-year jump. And it's really clear in how we see Ellie and Joel, how different they are now. So we have what I jokingly refer to as old man Joel. I don't feel like he was like this in the game. But in the show, he had it kind of old. He's got his glasses. He's got his hair is a bit more gray than it is in the game. He's like working on he's tinkering.
Right.
he's got kind of he's complaining about things that feel very kind of old man vibe, which is not present in the game. And we have talked about that in the show. I personally feel they made him a much more sympathetic character, at least a bit softer. He's not really like that in the game. He would not go to therapy in the game. I don't believe that for one single second. But they did introduce, we talked about this in one of our episodes, they did introduce, when they did one of the remasters, you can see that he has medication for anxiety on his table before the outbreak happens. So they were looking at that and reintroducing that. And in the first season of the show, you do see him having like panic attacks. But again, that's not in the game. That conversation he has that's very moving with Tommy in the first season, he did not have that in the game. I appreciate that they're doing this, but it is a very, to me, stark difference in this character. You do also kind of get these hints of him that we've already seen, but when he's kind of leading the construction effort, and when all these refugees are coming in and Maria's asking him, like, we need to move faster, we don't have places for these people, he's the one that says, like, well, we should turn them away because our lifeboat, we don't have space for them. You should look after your own first, which I think is telling based on the decision he made. Also, this is going to be a lot of discussion about fathers in this season. A lot of different types of fathers. But it was kind of fun to see him be like, well, Dina likes me. She should be my daughter.
She appreciates me.
Right. Which is such a, like, that's just not how it works.
He also hasn't lived with you, sir.
Exactly.
For 10 years.
Exactly. And then we have Ellie, who we are first introduced to in this season, where she's fighting this guy who's much bigger than her, and she takes him down. But I think there's a couple of points in here that are also telling to her character arc that's coming. One is she doesn't tap out. The guy taps out twice, and Jessie is saying, okay, that's enough. And she doesn't stop. And she's like, oh, I was just caught up in the moment. And then she gets really, really angry when she finds out that Caleb, the person she was fighting, pulled his punches. She does not like that. And that's a part of her really chafing against Joel protecting her. Because Jessie was like, well, I don't want to deal with Joel if you'd gotten knocked out or whatever. And she just really did not like that. And I think you can see through a couple of scenes the toll of growing up in the apocalypse, because it feels much more, and even when you play the game, it does have this vibe. It's like, oh, a clicker, I've done a clicker. Right. I know how to do that. Whereas like the first time, it felt very much like, oh God, a clicker. Mm-hmm. I'm dead for sure. So seeing them kind of joke about it, you realize that they've grown up with this stuff, and it's a little sobering. But you have a couple quotes around that where Jessie asks, like, can you take things a little more seriously? And then when Dina's like, maybe she's thinking about going back when they hear two clickers, and Ellie's like, if you'd rather let the men handle it. So there's a little bit of rebelliousness for sure happening, and just, I think, chafing at the overprotectiveness. Okay, but this does bring us to, we've got a whole cast of new characters. Starting with Dina, who's played by Isabella Merced. She is Ellie's best friend as we start out, and then the two of them become romantic with each other. Ellie is very interested in her, doesn't think she can ever get her, thinks Dina is way too good for her. But then you have the dancing scene, and it's like really intimate, which is unfortunately interrupted by Seth the bigot, which we did talk about. It's very, I don't think it's inaccurate at all, because this is 2029 when it's happening, but it's very disheartening that there's still homophobia in this world where there are zombies and stuff. Right. But there is. He's like, we're in a church. And I'm like, really? Okay. But yeah, there are a lot of queer elements in the game, and Dina and Ellie's relationship is one of the big ones. And I also noticed a lot of times when Ellie kind of is like, let's go scout or recon, Dina will follow her. It's usually Ellie's idea, and then Dina will be like, yes. But I think that dynamic will also be important in the future. And then there's Jesse, yes, played by Young Mazzino. And he's sort of the adult-ish leader of their group, but they're also friends. They're friends, but they have sort of that awkward relationship of he's somebody who has authority over you, and you don't like it necessarily. But also, again, Jesse and Dina have an on-again, off-again relationship, which complicates some things. But he's a big character in this. He'll be a big character in this season. And then, yes, we have Abby. Oh, my goodness. Who's played by Caitlin Dever, who was a fan cast, by the way. That's not why she got it. She auditioned for Ellie, but she was a fan cast outside of that. However, and we are going to talk about this more because this character is extremely divisive. I'm finding it really interesting, some of the comments that are coming out early about her, where people are mad about her body type, because in the game, Abby was very buff, very, very buff. And that was for a couple of reasons, gameplay reasons, and the one I think was just a necessary plot point. But obviously, Caitlin Dever is not that. But that people were mad at her being buff too.
Right.
They had all these hateful comments about how buff she was.
Yeah. I think when you have, like, for me, the game was just sexist, like over the top ridiculousness. The game for the show, I think it had, maybe for those who were fans of the game, and like it's not what you imagine. Like her facial structure, yes. for sure. But like I said that too. I was like, oh, she's a lot shorter and smaller than I thought she would be. I thought like she would at least look, but to me, like she was similar to the size of Ellie, seemingly, which was not what I was expecting because in the gameplay, she is almost like 5 inches taller than her and like a lot more muscular. So was not quite, especially when she was standing next to Owen, she looked really short compared to that character. So I was like, that's I think what shocked me the most because she does look very, very small. So that threw me off. I didn't say it was a bad thing. I was just like, that's not what I was expecting. So for maybe some of those fans, not the jerks who would like just hate women in general, just in like, because like we saw the person who played helped make the game for Abby. Like I've seen the behind the scenes. She's big. Like she is a muscular woman and she exists.
Yes. And I mean, we're going to have to, we'll talk about that when we get to whatever episode that will be. But there was a lot of hateful rhetoric around almost like transphobic rhetoric around her being so big. And so now it's hard to tell. I'm like, are you the same people who are just pissed now? Or are you whatever it is, different people? Most of it has just been mostly kind of like what you were talking about. I did read that they purposely cast somebody who looked more like Ellie in body type. So I think that will play out more in the future. I can't stress this enough. They did reveal Abby's dad died in that scene where they're going over the graves in the beginning. And, the giraffes are the same giraffes that Ellie and Joel saw.
They paid a lot of money for those giraffes. They're like, we need to use them again. Or at least the same shots. We need to use those same shots.
Yeah, which don't blame not in the game, but that's pretty good. But I can't stress enough that you do not know that until way later in the game. Right.
We don't know why, and everybody immediately hates her.
Yeah. But I think I have expressed my concern about this before, because just if the way that the game versus the show will play out, because in the game you can keep playing, right? But now we're going to have a wait of who knows how long before the next season comes out. So that wait, I think, could be pretty bad. Hopefully it won't be that long because they're already in pre-production, but I
wonder if they know that, and so they're like we're going to have to do it within the same year or within the next year, or we're going to be in trouble and lose all interest.
They have to know that, but I think that's the reason they switched that around instead of having sort of a mid-game reveal. You also meet Abby's crew, which is Owen, Nora, Mel, and Manny, and they will all be, I don't think they'll have too big a role in this season, but I could be wrong. I don't know how they're splitting it, but they will have a big role at some point. And then Eugene has been a shocker, because Eugene he's in the game, but he's a Polaroid picture. Like his ghost is everywhere. You kind of run into
memories of him.
Yeah. But you don't. So there's going to be a flashback episode with Eugene, I am given to understand. But this is Gail's husband. And Gail is a completely new character. I said, there's no way you could convince me that video game Joel would get therapy. But
also like in the game, I feel like Eugene is like just a perverted old man, a little bit perverted old lonely man.
Yeah, but Dina did really like him. He seemed like a guy who kept to himself.
Right. But like you find all the porn that he stashed, like all these things. Like he is definitely...
He grew a lot of weed.
Yeah.
He grew a lot of weed. But we'll see how that plays out, because they're doing that thing they sort of did with Frank and Bill, where this was a mention or a very brief moment in the game. So I don't know if they've changed his character or how that's going to play out. But they made clear with the weed that's going to be true.
Right.
Yes.
They're going to keep hold of that for sure.
Yes. Then we do have a lot of new enemies. One of the biggest complaints the showrunners have said that they got from the last season is that there wasn't enough infected, so there's going to be way more. We'll see how that works out. But there are new infected you get introduced to in the game. I don't know how many of them they're going to include, but they've already introduced stalkers, which also don't come in until about halfway in the game. So stalkers are this new type of infected that are smart. They can plan, they can hide, they can run away, they can kind of set traps. In the game, there's a function where you can listen and it's almost like sonar, like bat hearing, and then you can hear, like you can see sounds, you know? You can't see stalkers. They're so annoying. And they come together in groups, so you'd be fighting one and then one attacks you from behind.
There was at least 12 oh no's with that appearance.
Oh gosh. It's very Raptor, like, oh, unless they figure out open doors. They figured out how to open the doors. It's so frustrating. Especially if there are clickers too, because then you really have to strategize. And runner. Anyway. One thing I just want to tease, I'm not going to say anything more about it, but I'm incredibly excited about the Rat King, which I think will be next season. But that's going to be cool. That is like the king of infected.
You can't tell.
Yes, exactly. I'm so excited. There's a thing in the game where you can hear the Rat King like long before you actually encounter it. I'm hoping they do that in the show. I think that would be really cool. But all right, this brings us to one of the biggest things, one of the most jarring things of this episode and of the game when you first start is the rift between Joel and Ellie. So when we last saw them, they seem to be in an okay place. They're, going back home, as Joel called it. They seem to have this father-daughter relationship. They bonded. And now something has gone wrong. And it is very clear. It is very awkwardly, painfully clear. And we don't know quite what it is. We have the suspicions of what it is, but we don't know for sure. And this has a lot to do with Ellie's loss of trust in Joel and questioning what he's telling her and just how he's kind of controlling her narrative. He's the one telling her, you cannot tell anybody about this immunity. You cannot do that. And he, to the point, other people, as mentioned, know if I do something wrong with Ellie, Joel's going to do something possibly violent. So like Tommy lies to Joel about hanging out with Ellie. Jesse says that thing where it's like, I don't need Joel bothering me. And I really feel like there's this, she's annoyed at both the overprotectiveness. She is convinced he's lying, but she's also like having to deal with his anger, violence, overprotectiveness when it comes to other people. So like when he attacks Seth, whether you think that's the right thing he should have done or not, if you're looking at his past record of how he's dealt with these threats, like I feel like she might think she has to stop him from being violent. And also she definitely is annoyed at, and I think rightfully so, at her agency being kind of taken away. And there is a lot of like questioning about the impacts and consequences of violence, which will be confronted with his decision. But we also see things like the guitar, because in the first season, he said he would teach her to play the guitar. He did. Clearly he did. And she has a guitar, but she's not keeping up with it. It's kind of discarded. And she hasn't, like, the strings are bad, and he takes it to fix it. So that's a clear sign something's wrong. Also, she did move into the garage. And then you sort of have the therapist saying it's such a normal problem, like a 19-year-old. It's every daughter ever has this problem. But, we as the viewers know, oh, no, it's not just that. I mean, so does Gail. And that's why
Right.
she has her like, no, I know you're lying and you're hiding something.
Quit lying to me.
Yes. But one thing I thought was interesting in sort of when the showrunners were talking about it in the clip after was they were talking about that scene in the party after Joel attacks Seth or just pushes him down. And they said like she inadvertently embarrasses Joel. Ellie inadvertently embarrasses Joel, which is interesting because I played this game with my brothers and I was like, I feel like he inadvertently embarrassed her. And so that's kind of going back to that perspectives of who you think I mean, honestly, it's probably both. Both are true. But it was just so funny because I remember looking at my brothers and be like, are you serious? Look at this.
Okay.
Yeah. But then also there are a lot of similarities that are going to be explored. Tommy said, you know, you and my brother are the same person to Ellie. But also you can start to see some similarities between Abby and Joel. And they talk about that in the after show too, about, you know, if this kind of if Abby's loss kind of reminds you of Joel's loss of Sarah, then that's not unintentional. You see Abby has this watch. So there are these things that are going to come out and be more obvious as we go forward, which I'm very excited about. Very excited. Okay, and this brings us to just some random shout outs that I have. So one is the knife, Ellie's knife, which her mom gave her. She still has, and that's how you kill the clickers. Shimmer, her horse, if you remember, she meets Shimmer when she's much younger. The horse is much younger in the first season. Kat, Ellie's ex, who did the tattoo. I was not expecting Kat to show up. That was a real shock.
She looked like she was in pain.
She did not want to be there. I appreciate it. I wouldn't want to either. If you look around Ellie's room, there are a ton of them, like the comic book posters. There's also, she has a poster of space. She said she wanted to go to the moon and be like Sally Ride. That's what she wanted. Her journal is a game mechanic that you don't have to actually engage with if you don't want to in the game. But like, if you read it, a lot of what she had written is what's from the game. If you remember, after they kill the clickers, Dina and Ellie kill the clickers, there's a dog employee of the month. That is a clue to how to open a safe in the game. Multiple Curtis and Viper mentions. We must shout that out. This is also something you can miss in the game. It's kind of a conversation you can have if you choose to with Dina, where she's talking about how Joel loves Curtis and Viper. And she mentions like, oh yeah, if you should watch them with Joel and I might watch them. And then just the line, because I love it. Oh, Ellie, I think they should be terrified of you. Because, oh my, it's so good. It's so good. That whole scene was beautiful. It's like shot for shot. It's amazing. And that was the trailer for the game, was pretty much that scene. Crooked stills. Music, save music.
I love them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Anyway, thank you so much, listeners and Samantha, for coming along this journey. Hopefully they're fun, even if you don't watch the show and you're not really interested, sort of like our Sex and the City things are.
Yes. Please enjoy this with us. And just watching Anney, I'm going to keep a count. I'm going to keep a tally of the oh no's.
some tallies, the tears, and we'll see.
Yeah.
There are 7 episodes in this season, so hopefully you don't absolutely hate this, but if you do, there's only 7.
Calm down.
Before we start season 3, whenever that will be. But yeah. I'm very, very excited. I'm looking forward to it. And there's so many things I cannot wait to talk about. It's going to be great. But in the meantime, listeners, if you have any thoughts, if you have any recipes, Last of Us recipes, or things that you think are good fits for The Last of Us, we've got kind of a rough menu, but let us know. You can email us at hello@stuffonevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom's Stuff Podcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff One Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.